Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Saturday, December 21st, 2024, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside will reach a high of 71.7 degrees Fahrenheit today, with a low of 50.5, making it a pleasant winter day in Southern California. Coming up, we'll examine the strategic moves labor unions are making in response to potential political changes involving Donald Trump. We'll also explore California's latest water regulations and their impact on the state's ongoing water disputes. Plus, we'll look at an exciting space story about a pair of satellites and their mission to uncover some of the sun's most puzzling secrets. All this and more coming up on Alex's News. Stay tuned. Our top story this morning focuses on major labor actions affecting two of America's largest companies. With more on this developing situation, we turn to our labor correspondent Ethan Parker. Ethan, what can you tell us about these strikes?
Thanks, Grace. According to multiple news sources, including the Durango Herald, we're seeing unprecedented coordinated strikes at both Amazon and Starbucks facilities across major U.S. cities. The International Brotherhood of Teamsters, which represents nearly 10,000 Amazon workers at 10 facilities, has initiated strikes at 7 delivery stations and warehouses.
What specific demands are these Amazon workers making?
The Teamsters are pushing for several key improvements, Grace. As reported by KTVZ News Channel 21, they're demanding higher wages, enhanced benefits packages, and notably, they're fighting for delivery drivers to be classified as direct Amazon employees rather than contractors, a distinction that significantly affects workers' rights and benefits.
And what's the situation looking like at Starbucks?
According to KTAR News, Workers United, which represents employees at 535 Starbucks locations, that's about 2.72% of their U.S. stores, is protesting what they view as discriminatory wage practices. The company has offered unionized workers no immediate raises and only a 1.5% increase in future years, while non-unionized workers are set to receive 3 to 5% raises starting in just 11 days, on January 1st.
There's also a political angle to these strikes, isn't there, Ethan?
Absolutely, Grace. These actions are happening against the backdrop of the upcoming transition to President-elect Trump's administration. Labor unions are racing to secure agreements before the change in leadership, anticipating a potentially less union-friendly National Labor Relations Board under Trump. However, there's an interesting twist. Trump has shown some unexpected labor-friendly signals, including his appointment of Oregon Representative Lori Chavez DeRemer, who has strong union backing, to lead the Department of Labor.
And how long are these strikes expected to continue?
Sources indicate that the strikes could expand to hundreds of Starbucks stores by Christmas Eve. That's just 3 days away. The unions are feeling pressure to act quickly before the administrative transition occurs.
Thank you for that comprehensive report, Ethan. We'll continue to follow this developing story. Our second story tonight focuses on significant changes to California's water delivery systems. Joining us to discuss these new rules is our environmental correspondent, Chloe Martinez. Chloe, what can you tell us about this major announcement?
Thanks, Grace. Just yesterday, state and federal water officials from both the Biden and Newsom administrations unveiled new operating rules that will affect California's two main water delivery systems: the State Water Project and the Federal Central Valley Project. According to state officials, these systems currently serve about 30 million Californians and provide water to much of the state's agricultural land.
What are the most significant changes we're seeing with these new rules?
Well, Grace, according to reporting from the Los Angeles Times, major urban water suppliers will see increased water deliveries, with the Metropolitan Water District, which serves 19 million Southern California residents, being one of the main beneficiaries. However, there's a trade-off here. Some San Joaquin Valley farmers could see their water deliveries reduced by up to 20% during dry years.
I understand there are environmental considerations as well. How do these new rules address wildlife concerns?
That's right, Grace. Federal environmental reviews have indicated some concerning projections, particularly for salmon populations. The reports show we could see a 23% decline in winter-run Chinook juvenile salmon numbers, especially during dry years. The rules do include modified timing of water releases from Lake Shasta to improve cold water spawning conditions, but environmental groups are saying this might actually be worse than the Trump administration's 2019 policy for protecting endangered species.
What about the Delta smelt? We've heard a lot about their declining numbers over the years.
The situation for Delta smelt is particularly dire. According to state wildlife surveys, we've seen a dramatic decline from their peak numbers in the 1970s to what scientists are now calling near extinction levels. In fact, monitoring efforts are now only occasionally catching individual fish, showing just how critical the situation has become.
And looking ahead, what can we expect?
The State Water Board is scheduled to vote on a new water quality plan next year, but there's some uncertainty about the future of these rules. With President-elect Trump set to take office, and given his previous criticisms of California's water management, we could see changes to these policies. It's worth noting that Chuck Bonham, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife Director, has defended the rules as good for both people and the environment, though not everyone agrees with that assessment.
Thank you, Chloe, for that comprehensive overview of these new water delivery rules. Here are some other headlines. The U.S. Senate has passed the Social Security Fairness Act, a bipartisan bill that will boost benefits for nearly 3 million public service retirees. The legislation, which passed with a vote of 76 to 20, eliminates long-standing reductions that have affected teachers, firefighters, and police officers who receive government pensions. While the change will cost an estimated $195 billion over 10 years, supporters say it corrects an unfair aspect of federal law. In Florida, concerns are mounting over the teaching of African American history in public schools. Despite a 1994 law requiring Black history education, critics argue that instruction often lacks depth and is inconsistent across districts. Recent restrictions on how race and discrimination can be discussed in schools have further complicated the issue, leading community groups and churches to step in with supplementary education programs. A new generation of Asian Americans is breaking stereotypes and claiming their space in American society. Unlike previous generations who often faced pressure to remain quiet and conform, younger Asian Americans are assertively making their voices heard across business, politics, and entertainment, aided by social media platforms and changing demographics. Groundbreaking archaeological discoveries suggest that giant sloths and mastodons coexisted with humans in the Americas for thousands of years longer than previously thought. New evidence, including artifacts dating back 27,000 years, challenges earlier theories about when humans first arrived in the Americas and their interactions with prehistoric megafauna. And finally, what began as a wrong number at a military base during the Cold War has become a beloved holiday tradition. NORAD's Santa Tracker, which started in 1955 when children accidentally called a military command center looking for Santa, now attracts millions of families each Christmas Eve, using modern technology to track St. Nick's journey around the globe. And now for our third story of the morning. A fascinating development in space exploration as scientists work to create artificial solar eclipses. With us now is our science correspondent, Ethan Parker. Ethan, tell us about this ambitious project.
Thanks, Grace. According to reporting from Al Jazeera, the European Space Agency launched an innovative mission called Proba 3 earlier this month on December 4th from India's Satish Dhawan Space Center. What makes this mission unique is that it uses two spacecraft working together to create artificial solar eclipses.
How exactly do these spacecraft work together to create an eclipse?
Well, Grace, they're calling them the occulter and the coronagraph. As WESA-FM reports, these two satellites will fly in an incredibly precise formation, about 150 meters apart. That's about 1.5 football fields. The occulter carries a disk that's 1.4 meters in diameter, and it will block the sun's light, casting a shadow on the coronagraph spacecraft, essentially doing what the moon does during a natural eclipse.
That sounds like it requires incredible precision. What's the main goal of creating these artificial eclipses?
The primary objective, according to KTTS News, is to solve what scientists call the coronal heating problem. It's a fascinating mystery. The sun's surface is about 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit, but its corona, or outer atmosphere, reaches temperatures up to 2 million degrees Fahrenheit. This defies what we'd normally expect about how temperature should distribute itself.
And how long will these artificial eclipses last compared to natural ones?
That's one of the most exciting parts, Grace. During each 20-hour orbit, they'll be able to observe the corona for up to 6 hours, dramatically longer than the few minutes we get during natural eclipses. The first results are expected in about 94 days, around March 2025, and they're planning to create these eclipses at least twice weekly.
What's the expected lifespan of this $210 million mission?
The mission is planned for 2 years, aiming to achieve at least 1,000 hours of what they're calling on-demand totality. After that, both satellites will gradually descend and burn up in Earth's atmosphere within about 5 years.
Thank you for that fascinating report, Ethan. Really looking forward to seeing those first results in March. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 3.5, the Perplexity API, and the Google Cloud Text-to-Speech API. Hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.